Welcome to another episode on SMI Hub Canada. My name is Julie, and here I always talk about everything studying and immigrating to Canada. You are welcome, guys. So today I want to talk about driving in Canada. If you are a mom, you need to learn how to drive. You need to be able to drive. You need to be mobile. If you're single and you want to do other business, maybe you want to do career service with your 20 hours once in a while to get some money, then you want to have a car. I feel like being mobile is very important for a parent, and that's why I want to talk about this. So first, there are some countries that if you have the driving license of that country, you don't need to stress yourself. You can exchange the driver license for a Canadian driver license. For instance, the United States, if you have a driving license from the United States, I know Japan is one of it. I know Switzerland, I know Belgium, France, I know Britain, so Great Britain, Korea, So just check if your country is one of them. Then you can just go to the driving center in your town and just present that, and you will get a Canadian driving license. But I think you will still need to take a visionary drive. There's something called, I will go into that soon, but there's something called the knowledge test, where you answer questions about rules of the road and driving and all of that. Questions though. On a computer, so you still need to take that, as well as the vision test. So if you use glasses, you still need to have your glasses and all of that. They would test to see if your glasses is working. So if you're not from those countries I mentioned, like if you're like me from Nigeria, if you're from India, if you're not from those countries I mentioned, you will need to have so you will need to get a driver license from Canada. But this video, I want to tell you a fast track way of being able to get it. If you're from Nigeria, you can get a letter from FRSC. That letter, if you tell them that letter, just tell them that you need a letter to show in a driving center in Canada or wherever you're going, just that we attest that it's different from your driver license. Now it's going to attest that you can drive and all of that. So you can get it before leaving Nigeria, or you can get it if you get here from Ottawa. That's from the Nigerian embassy, whichever way you prefer. But that letter, you need it. You can't just take your driver license as a Nigerian and just want to exchange it for their driving license. You need to get that letter in addition to the driver license. Then the second thing is, all of you listening to me, even if you have a driver's license from United States, all those countries I mentioned earlier, you need to be valid. So if your driver license from the United States, for instance, is expired, no one will exchange it for you. So make sure it's valid, and if it's expired, go and renew it. If you're coming from Nigeria, if you want to get Canadian driver license, make sure also that is valid. So if you want to use your driver license or you want to exchange it here in Canada, make sure it's valid. If it's expired, you need to renew it, and make sure you take the old and the new one so that they see your driving history. That brings me to the next thing. If you have less than 2 years driving experience from Nigeria, for instance, or from any country that you are not on the list of direct exchange, like United States, France, if your country is not on that list and you have less than 2 years, you need to wait for it to be 2 years before you can take the G2. So I will use Ontario as an example and just let you know. So there are different exams you need to take. Let's assume you are taking it from the scratch. You first have to take the G1, and the G1 is the knowledge-based test. So you will learn it, you will download the manual, you can practice with apps, G1 test apps, Play Store, on iStore, whatever they call it, and then you practice that and you go for that test. If you pass that exam, then you can go for the G2. The G2 is the road test. You will take a car. The examiner will sit beside you and you will go and drive. So if you passed the first one, you can take the G2. That's the road test. Now, if you are from Nigeria or from India, wherever, you do the G1, that's the road test, and you pass it. Then you can do the G2. But if you want to use your letter, maybe you have more than 2 years, or because it has been more than 2 years, maybe you have 6 years. Like me, I had 6 years in Nigeria, but when I got here, I was like, I'm not using any letter. I didn't even get it when I was coming. So I'm like, I'm not using any letter. I want to start from the scratch. I want to, I know how to drive, but I just want to learn their, rules and everything here so that I'm confident, because this is not just about getting the license for me. I'll be driving my kids. So just let me do it. Then let me start from the basics here. So I didn't go to driving school because I already knew how to drive, which would have helped me reduce my insurance, but I didn't even care. I feel like, why will I go to driving school and start learning how to drive? Oh yeah, press the accelerator. Why? When I know how to drive. What I did was I went to get the manual. I learned the rules of the road, because that's the one thing that I wasn't good with, especially because of where I was coming from. I learned, okay, when to turn left, when to turn right, right of way, who has right of way, the traffic light, all the symbols. There are different traffic symbols, road symbols or whatever. So I learned all of those things just to give me a good grasp of what they want from me. And then I went to take my G1. That's the knowledge test. So I took the G1, and after I took the G1, I passed it in one sitting, and I now started preparing for the G2. That's the road test. For that one, you need to actually practice with the car. I didn't go to driving school, but I decided to hire an instructor for just 2 sessions. That's just 2 hours. So the first hour, he drove beside me. We went around and I was just correcting me. In fact, at the end of the 1 hour, I was destabilized. Am I really sure I want to do this thing? And then I took the second person, was a woman. That one, the correction was even worse. So I just lost all my confidence. I went for the exam and I failed it. That was the road exam. I failed that exam and I came back. I was like, God, I felt so sad. And I just realized, well, for me to fail this exam, there was something that I'm doing wrong. So I went back to that's why I think that the handbook is very important. I went back to my manual, the driving manual. I started relearning again. Okay, what are the things I'm missing? So anytime I go on the bus to school, I look at how the bus driver is driving. I remember I would look at how they're driving, how they are turning on the road, how they avoid the bicycle lanes, when they turn left, how they wait for the lights. I was always doing that. Like 30 minutes I'm in the bus, I was always doing that. That was my way of preparing, because I was like, I don't have any money to spend on any instructor again, and I'm not going back to driving school because I can't drive, right? So I started learning that way, and then I did that, and I just did one driving with somebody, because if you have a G, if somebody has a G, they can stay beside you. If you have a G1, you can, with your G1, the knowledge test G1 that you have, that they will give you a card for it, like you have a G1 license. The only thing is that you can't drive on your own, because you've not passed the road test. You have to drive with a G. That's a full G, someone that has a full G beside you. So you can get someone that has a full G that and just say, please let me drive with you. That's if you can drive, or if you can't drive, go to driving school, just better. So I got that person and we just moved around, and that was all I did, and I passed on my second attempt. Yay! So I passed. That was how I started to drive. So with the G2, once you pass the road test, you can drive anywhere, highways, cities, towns. Most of my driving was within the city anyway. I've driven highway before, but just very few times, unlike my husband that drives highway a lot. So I don't really need that, but it's good to know how to drive everywhere. So you can drive everything, but if it expires in 5 years. If it expires, you have to start again from G1. So that's why you must make sure you take the full G before your G2 expires. G2 expires in 5 years, so you have to take the full G before it expires. And once you've driven for 1 year on a G2, you are eligible to take the G. So once you have the G, you are good. It doesn't expire. You just need to renew it. I mean, it doesn't, you don't have to go back. It expires, but you just renew it. You don't have to go back to G1 once you have your full G. And with the full G, you can also drive in certain countries, at least, in exchange, just like the countries I talked about. So, but now for you guys that have the letter, if you have a letter from FRSC and you have over 2 years driving experience in any country, I'm talking about the countries that are not eligible to drive here, you can go straight and do the G exam, the full G that I talked about. You can go straight and do the full G exam with that letter. The only thing is you have to do your knowledge test. That G1, everybody has to do it. Whether you drive, whether you've been driving, whether you have a United States license, whether you have a Korean license, or whether whatever, everybody has to do the knowledge-based test, and you have to pass it. So that's the only thing. If you're coming from Nigeria and you have that letter and you have more than 2 years driving experience, you still have to do the G1. That's the knowledge test. But you can now, after you get the knowledge test, you passed it, you can do the G exam straight. And if you do the G exam straight, you will get your G certificate. Now, there are people that do the G exam and they feel like, we don't feel you are good enough to give you a G, but we can give you a G2. And that's fine as well. You can still drive. You just have to do your G before your G2 expires. And now there are some people that will do the G and then they'll be like, we don't think we can give you the G. We can't even give you G2 as well. Go back and go and do G2. So those are the things that can happen. But you have the option. If you have that letter, you can go straight and do a G exam. And you can decide not to use the letter and be like, okay, be like me and start from the beginning. Do your G1, pass it, do your G2, pass it, and do your G. So if you want to start driving immediately coming from Nigeria or from India or from Philippines or wherever you're coming, and you don't have a direct license exchange like the United States, like Korea, you can decide to get the letter. I don't know if it applies for India. I don't know if you guys also get a letter. But I know Nigeria, you need to get a FRSC letter, and you can tender it along with your license that shows that you've been driving over 2 years. And all you have to do is the knowledge test and then go for your G exam. If you are good and you know the rules and everything, you should be fine and you will get your G license. So I hope you've gained 1 or 2 things from my story and from everything I said today. And let me know if you have questions. Remember that this scenario I talked about is strictly for Ontario. I know that other provinces have their own type of driving licenses, but many of these provinces for Nigerians still require that they get a letter. So to be safe, it's better to get that letter. So if you need it, you can tender it, and if you don't need it, all well and good. Remember, I know people try to get international driver license. I got it and it was just useless. What is most important is that your actual driving license is valid and that you have the letter. Just have the letter, even if you don't end up using it for your province, but at least in case you need it, you have it. So that's just it. And that will be all for today. If you love my content, remember to subscribe, like, and share. Till the next time, guys. Bye.